I've played a video game. It's called StarFox. It released in 1993 on the Super Nintendo, and if someone tells you not to bother playing it, they're immediately wrong. Let's talk game design. If I sound annoyed, it's because I'm making this video partly in response to some stuff I saw on the internet. Because what's the point of being on the internet if you can't get mad at random people saying stupid things? Specifically that if you want to get into the StarFox series, you should just start at 64 and skip the original game. As we go through this video, I want you to keep in mind this critical theory that I've had the entire time. If somebody tells you not to play StarFox, they never made it beyond Course 1. As I set about proving this, there's something you need to know. I've been able to complete this entire game on every difficulty level without dying since I was about 7 years old. And I'm going to do that again now, while telling you more or less everything you need to know about the design of the original StarFox. So sit down, pay attention, and open up your notebook, because the class is about to begin and many of you have a lot to learn. Starting with heavy, slow, ominous music. Ships unsuccessfully running away from laser fire. A huge, slowly encroaching attack carrier looms over a luscious blue planet, releasing half a dozen flapping little space birds, because I don't know what else to call them, that descend on the inhabitants below. What's clear from this is that something has already happened, because the Force is coming prepared. This is not day one of a war. You are late. This intro is about 30 seconds long and the stage is already set. It's a hostile invasion by an evil empire. Bit like Star Wars, you know. Press start and you're here. A neat little screen for you to play freely with the way your ship controls. It's called an R-Wing, by the way, similar to an X-Wing but with a different letter. Bit like Star Wars, you know. This is a great introduction because at this point not many people with just home consoles will have played with three-dimensional movement. So having a little free play segment before you get into anything serious is a good start. But we can do better. How about a training mode, which the game strongly suggests that you do. In training, all you have to do mostly is fly through some rings. This will teach you even more intuitively how to move in 3D space. It'll demonstrate to you how your actual physical 3D ship can point in actual physical 3D directions, rather than just moving around a flat 2D plane. There's also this section where you're asked to stay in formation, and I'm going to be honest with you, I've been playing this game for 33 years and I've never got close to completing this properly. On the plus side, it does give Falco a reason to be mean to you, so at least you get a sense of his personality alongside the rest of the team. Right, so you've flown around a bit, learned the controls and been given enough external space from the main gameplay to have no excuses if you mess this up. Time to actually get on with it. There is a war going on. There's 3 distinct paths through the game, all of them beginning at Corneria and ending at Venom, where Andros lives. Most people, and I strongly recommend this for you, will start with level 1. Don't worry, we're getting through all of them, but we're going to start with General Pepper, of absolutely no relation to Sergeant Pepper, is sending 4 of you off to fight a telekinetic super genius emperor on a planet named Venom. So, good luck! Showing off their shiny, brand new 3D polygon super effects technology, the StarFox team blasts out of the launch bay and gets a little cinematic view as they burst into the skies of Corneria, with an incredible music track pumping out to conjure up some adrenaline. Immediately, you are in control. Do not panic. This is stage 1 of level 1, the easiest in the game. So you have a lot of space, time and freedom to carry on playing around and getting a feel for how the controls and physics work. A couple of little space birds pop up to give you something to shoot at, and so that you can start learning that your laser shots don't just go where you're looking or straight from where you're positioned in the screen, but they also follow the angle of your ship. Slippy's going to pop up to start annoying you. Get used to it. He's pointing out some rings on the floor that he feels the insatiable need to fly through and subtly suggesting that you should as well, because we're still very much in the act of learning by doing. So get down there and follow your very annoying frog friend. Fly through them all like you did in training and you'll unlock the Twin Blaster upgrade, which lets you fire 2 very real laser bullets at once instead of 1. I say very real because this isn't just a spike with a bigger hitbox. It is an actual physical laser beam, and now you have 2 of them. In design terms, the game has now rewarded you for successfully executing something that you learned earlier. Good job. Incidentally, if you die or take too much wing damage, you can lose this, but you won't see that in this video because I'm just too good. Corneria as a level is of course nice and simple. The enemies vary in positioning all around the screen, so that you're forced to move horizontally and vertically to hit them, which reinforces your understanding of movement in physical 3D space. It's following a very clear pattern of showing you something, letting you try it, and then testing whether or not you've actually learned it. Meanwhile, there is a hostile force carrying bits of geometric structures around, trying to build something solid on the world they're invading. So even in a simplistic 3D rail shooter, we've got environmental storytelling going on. We'll have a lot more of that later, so do pay attention. You'll run into things like the small health regenerating yellow rings, the silver checkpoint rings that fill even more of your shield, Nova bomb pickups to add to your armory, and a very standout mechanic where a member of your squad gets chased in front of you by an enemy and requires your help to not die. This is very simple, but very important, because it's completely random which team member it happens to, and even in a game this simple, it fleshes out the fact that you are not alone. You really are Fox McCloud, leader of the StarFox team, and you get to prove it by saving the people who follow you. When you look at other on-rail shooters of the time, it's often basically just shoot at it until it dies, like a target range. In StarFox though, even with something just as simple as this, it's more than that. You are on a battlefield doing a mission with a team. All of this gets introduced in Corneria, including the part where your team calls out their targets and you can just steal them for fun, which helps you learn their personalities. And you'll take a lot of this in passively while you're railroaded towards your first boss, introduced with a similar kind of ominous music from earlier on. Now I have to talk fast about this one because I can beat it blindfolded by now, but it's that attack carrier from the intro. It periodically reveals red and yellow flashing weak points, you shoot them, avoid getting shot, and it explodes. And that's it. But this is level 1, so that's enough. At the end of every stage, Fox checks in with his team, because if you're not a good enough leader, they can take damage. Then you get your score. Now, don't worry about your score, because the game certainly doesn't. You'll notice in gameplay that it isn't present anywhere on the screen, so it's not a priority. And all it really does is give you an extra continue at 10,000, 30,000, 50,000 points. Also, the game cartridge itself can't save high scores, so genuinely this isn't important. I'm absolutely not just saying that because I didn't get 100% on every level. Then we're on to the next stage of Course 1. Your mission this time is to destroy something called the Rock Crusher, because Andros apparently wants to expand to an asteroid belt and presumably the rocks are getting in the way of his 5-star hotel resort and spa. First thing you'll notice is you've been shifted automatically into first-person cockpit view. You don't have to stay like this, and you can press select to shift between 3 different perspectives pretty much whenever you want. But I've played this for so long now that I could clear it in whatever viewpoint is available, so I just go with what the game scripts me to do. You might wonder how you can accurately predict your location in 3D when you're in first person, but there's little guiding arrows around your HUD that show roughly your save space and even what angle you're pointing at when pitching or rolling, because this game is great and again gives you no excuse. I realise we're obviously set in space, but in this level you really do get a sense of it being incredibly space themed. There's particles flying everywhere, an abundance of both breakable and invincible asteroids, and more abstract looking space type enemies. Basically, we're in space. But given we started down on a planet's surface, it's important to draw a clear contrast and show a thematic sense of progression. Because you've got a crosshair now and your POV is right at the front of your ship, you'll really understand how much your physical laser shots actually aim towards where your ship is pointing and not just where you are. Also very important on this level, you can get your second shot upgrade, the Twin Blaster Type B. This turns your laser beams into sort of laser balls, and I think does twice as much damage. Trust me, everything just got a lot easier. Things start to escalate pretty quickly on this level. Enemies move more erratically, the asteroids themselves become dynamic obstacles, and the whole thing feels a lot less controlled. And Slippy carries on being annoyingly useless to the point where you want to blow him up. The first negative of StarFox is that the asteroid belt can get a little bit samey and repetitive. It's all one scrolling black space background and the same grey and brown rocks, and it goes on just a little bit too long. This is made even worse later, but it's fine, we'll get to that. And eventually it does give way to our second boss, the Rock Crusher that you were sent here to destroy. Again, it is nice and simple, but now you need to start paying attention to timing. By this point, you already know that flashing red and yellow means a weak point, especially on a boss. Here, those weak points are clearly defined diamond shapes that you need to track, line up, and hit as they move, all while avoiding incoming fire. It's a logical step up that adds timing and movement to something that you already understand. Blow that up, and you've destroyed the Rock Crusher, letting rock run free once more across the universe to save us from Andros' endless barrage of hip-hop and Taylor Swift. Moving on. We're off to destroy some energy cores inside giant battleships. Again, 4 of us, on a freelance contract, in prototype ships that have never been tested. Brilliant. First person view again, and the return of the scrolling space background we just got through, which is why I mentioned it getting a little bit repetitive. But this isn't the same stage, and it'll open up into the differences quite quickly. A giant, and I mean really giant, battleship pops up that looks quite a lot like a Star Destroyer from the Sith in Star Wars. Did we mention Star Wars? Followed very quickly by another one. You're getting the sense of contextual scale now, the raising stakes, and honestly just how cool StarFox as a team clearly are. Immediately reinforced by moving physically inside one of the huge cruisers, doing some incredibly cool and quite complex flying maneuvers, and blowing it the hell up by shooting the core, which was your mission, which again you agreed to do, for some reason. You'll go on to do it again, this time with Peppy telling you to hit the brakes before you get squashed by a giant metal bar. Peppy's role in the team is the kind of smart, wise, older one, and he demonstrates this by telling you not to get crushed. So, fair enough. As the explosions ripple through the void, the frame rate absolutely tanks. But we're on a brand new 10 MHz chip in a 16-bit console, so I'm just going to call it cinematic slow motion. Little side note here for you. Did you know StarFox is at least partly British? A literal teenager who worked at Argonaut Games, the guys behind Croc and was working on a 3D engine for the Game Boy that eventually became a game that was just called X. Argonaut sent that demo around to a few publishers, and Nintendo responded by literally paying to fly the Argonaut team out to Japan to show it off to them in person. They were so impressed that they put together an exclusivity deal, took on Argonaut in a separate subsidiary joint company, and started working on StarFox to show off their fantastically impressive technology for the time. Anyway, what's happened here is the game turned the spectacle of the background scale and scope into actual physical gameplay space, and it leans hard into that when you get to the boss, an even bigger battleship. All guns blazing while you inexplicably decide yes, that is where we're going. Little bit more elaborate ace pilot flying, navigating some sliding doors that either move when you shoot them or lock in their movement direction, and you'll slip into a scripted cinematic 3D tracking camera shot where you roll and soar through a tight, fully 3D corridor, really showing off the Super FX capabilities. Do be warned though that you are getting shown this to preemptively apologise for what I consider the worst boss in the entire game. The atomic base is a giant energy core with nodes on a cylindrical wall. Remember when we talked about your shots firing at your ship's angle and not just where you were looking? Trying to line up an angle to shoot at an external rotating cylindrical wall is really finicky and really not the best implementation of the 3D space. You'll need to take them all down at once, and as if that wasn't annoying enough, just when you think you've got it lined up properly to hit the next one, the tube can slow down and then start rotating the other way instead, so your position doesn't even work anymore. And there's 3 of them. Anyway. Take those nodes out and the core opens up so you can take your frustration out on that and get on with your day. You don't even get a mission brief this time, just General Pepper telling you to be careful with his R-Wings. You know, the ones he didn't bother testing before sending 4 of you off to take on an entire empire's worth of army, and he's worried about the ships. You're on the surface of a giant meteor that's been turned into an army base, with a music track I can only describe as spatial, and there's some giant walking robots. You know, like attack walkers, like in Star Wars. We're back to the Corneria style layout of pop-up enemies on a beautiful backdrop as the challenge starts to escalate. It's a higher test of the skills that you locked in earlier, and it'll go even further than that when it starts spawning random giant industrial pillars for you to not crash into. So, pro tip, don't crash into them. One thing you especially need to watch out for in this level is glowing wireframe turrets that fire giant glowing laser balls at you, because those things hurt. I haven't mentioned this yet, but another clever point about the design is that the damage your ship takes is influenced entirely by which part of your ship gets hit. You take minimal damage to your wings, although they can break entirely, but these balls are so big that they'll probably slam right into your cockpit and cause maximum damage. So the difficulty has really escalated by the time we get here. Although to be fair, it won't be long now until you're banging on Andross's front door, so this is basically the Lila equivalent of a Ring doorbell with a USB machine gun. There's also battle tanks, timed doors, and being a meteor, giant rocks, so I hope you've learned how to move well by now. The boss for this level is the Dancing Insector, the most I am an alien enemy that you've faced so far. It'll prance around like a murderous ballet dancer for a minute, then flatten itself out and start corkscrewing towards you with pointy legs. At this point they turn red, so obviously pluck them off like a cruel child picking at an insect in summer. Public service announcement: Let's Talk Game Design does not endorse the animal cruelty of torturing small defenseless insects, you heartless monsters. Oh, and it also shoots fire, so watch out for that. Finally, we've made it to... According to General Pepper, who may or may not also be a doctor, we're going in to destroy Andross's brain. His entire brain. We're freelancers, man. What is this? You start Venom up in orbit, making your way in. You know what you're doing by now. Huge hordes of simple but plentiful enemies, lasers everywhere, the looming planet below. You know, a bit like Red Squadron in Star Wars. Have you seen Star Wars? There isn't much piloting to be done, no obstacles to avoid, just your team and the insanely bountiful army rising to stop you. Most of it is, in fact, rockets, which suggests that the planet's defenses are firing up to hold you back. The cinematic space opera drama is really opening up on your approach. The difficulty now isn't coming from technical mastery, it's coming from quantity, to represent that you and your band of 4 underpaid mercenary workers are taking on literally an entire evil empire army on their massive goddamn battle planet. Then you'll reach the Fantron, a sort of splitting space snake robot machine that will test your positioning and movement skills, while also frustrating you with how much you're not actually really hitting it. It's not much though, and pretty soon it runs off and you can complete your approach. Down on Venom's surface, beneath the golden electric sky, you'll be reintroduced to that technical piloting you didn't have to do. Big industrial evil empire towers and buildings everywhere, laser turrets, and giant rotating walls that move in whatever direction you shoot them to. We've got geometric shapes rising and falling from the floor like a graphic equalizer, even more turrets, and some falling bricks. This all leads you to the return of the Fantron, who has now grown legs and started acting like the main character from Jumping Flash. The design on this thing is really cool, as a callback to how you started flying through geometric gates as training, and now it's like those gates have come back to get their revenge. Finish off the Fantron and we're treated to another dramatic cinematic cut of Andross's main base just up ahead, and Fox starts performing some cool but honestly absolutely unnecessary barrel rolls on the way in. Andross knows you're coming, so he teases you with some classic teasing villain monologue before you make it to, I don't know, his brain, I suppose? This, in 1993, was incredible. Big animated polygon face like something out of the Lawnmower Man, spitting floor tiles at you while you try and shoot him right in the eyeballs. As a final boss, it's a great test of everything you're supposed to have learned so far. Positioning, movement, object avoidance, and specific and precise aim at his narrow weak points. Land enough of those and his face will break into literal pieces, revealing what I suppose is his actual brain. It's his face on a cube. I don't know, the Super FX was 10 MHz. On course 1, this only takes a few shots from the Twin Blaster Type B, and he's gone. Done. Finished. Galaxy saved. Good job. Fox flies out of the exploding base and does one last check-in with his team. It must have been a success because Falco is actually nice to you, so clearly something important happened. Roll credits, everybody go home. Enjoy your congratulations from Dr. Pepper in full voice acting in 1993.
Come in, Cornelia.
This is Corneria. Pepper speaking. Congratulations on a job well done.
Roger. I'm heading back to Corneria.
And we're all done. Except we're not. In the intro, I mentioned that one of the reasons I felt the need to make this video is that there's a sizable number of people on the internet who will tell you that you don't need to come back to the original StarFox, and that playing something like 64 is enough. I've got this theory that those people have only played StarFox on course 1, probably either via emulation or on something like the SNES Mini. They've seen a reasonable representation of the gameplay, but it played through levels like the Asteroid Belt and the Space Armada, where the setting can get a bit repetitive and samey and it's all a little bit easy. They haven't seen all of what this game has to offer, and the value that you can still get from it today. So stay in your seat and keep your notebook open because class is not over. We're moving on to... There's still 2 more courses to go, and we're going to do them all, and then some more, but we'll get to that later. Like I said before, every run starts with... Back home, except now it's a little bit harder. Not too much, this is still stage 1, but you will feel and notice the difference. You do still have your arches to fly through, but now there's more hostile buildings, radar towers, and evil construction robots. There's some timed falling doors in the way of your twin blaster, which you still need. It is all the same, but different. And the increased volume of stuff does a really good job of letting you know that this isn't course 1. Don't panic though, the boss is still exactly the same principle and everything. So if you've done it once before, you can do it here. You're Fox McCloud, young ace pilot leader of the StarFox team, so don't choke. Get your homeworld defense done and we're on to another rocky bit of space that Andross wants to build a resort in, another rock crusher that needs crushing. So far, so much the same. Well, sort of, but not really. For one thing, Sector X is a much cooler name than Asteroid Belt. But more than that, the setting has a giant planet on the bottom of the screen and there's huge rotating solid letters and bits of steel beams in space. It gets very chaotic very quickly. The geometry of everything you're going through now looks like an unfinished level in Celeste, but you still have the opportunity to pick up your twin shot Type B while soaring past giant metal renditions of the letter T. and something that looks like an interactive screensaver from Windows 95. You can also hopefully shoot Slippy a lot. That doesn't do anything, it just makes me feel better. I presume a lot of this is stuff that Andros wanted for walls and roofs and things, because it's not as if you can have a warehouse in space when you're trying to invade, is it? Point is, there's now so much more dynamic obstacles in your way, and rather than avoid static objects, you've got big floaty, rotating, abstract shapes to shift your way around. So you will actually have to test your piloting skills even more than before. The boss is still the Rock Crusher though, so just crush him and save the galaxy from Taylor Swift again. A whole other brand new planet in the Lilac system. Corneria's resource world, so presumably full of precious minerals, being overrun by a weather control unit. Nice to have a proper new mission and not just don't crash my ships. It's also visually one of my favourite levels in the game, and very much part of my earlier theory that people never played past Course 1. Titania starts off as ice and frost everywhere, with lots of atmospheric shading and falling snow. Big sweeping glaciers to act as both obstacles and provide geographical context. More of those AT-AT walkers, turrets, swinging doors, frozen mechanical crabs, and really just the basic core loop of a StarFox level escalated into an entirely new environment without having to reuse storm clouds and grey rock floors. There's also a new puzzle section, where you'll approach 3 doors, and if you don't go through the right one, you'll loop a section of the level over and over again. But when you do go through that door, presumably switching off the weather station, you'll get an impressive transition of the colour scheme from that stark blue and white frozen landscape to what actually does look more like a resource planet. Back to brown, I suppose, but it is implementing a mission objective into the gameplay and demonstrating it visually, rather than a text box or a cutscene. Something else I love, when you start to approach the boss area in presumably the big actual weather station building, it displays bye-bye on a little scrolling marquee before it runs off. I just think it's cute. Come out the other side and you'll face little jumping fish things trying to kill you, and blast along underneath what looks like a long asphalt highway like a YouTube synthwave video. After that, the boss itself is just Professor Hanger, some guy in a tramcar who keeps trying to drop things to kill you and explodes in about 3 seconds. But that's okay, because sometimes a level doesn't need a difficult boss, it just needs a memorable and thematically relevant one, which is what Professor Hanger is. So Titania saved and back under the control of presumably precious Cornerian capitalism, we're on to... General Pepper starts asking about his ships again, and warns us about amoebas in space. Space amoebas. This is Sector Y, as in, Sector Y did we take this job? Reinforcing my, I swear some people just haven't played past Course 1, this is technically just another space bit, but the music is somber and ethereal, and half of the enemies look like fish, sea creatures just floating about on a more vibrant space backdrop. There's even a giant space stingray showing off a sort of flow and fluidity that up until now you wouldn't have thought the Super FX chip could manage. Plus there's a whale. We're basically in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a real spectacle stage while also testing your positioning and aiming. Oh right, and there's the space amoebas. They do in fact stick to your ship, and General Pepper was right, so do a barrel roll. I had to say it eventually, I'm sorry. The boss is something called the Plasma Hydra, a sort of squid-like space thing with 2 floppy tendrils that you need to shoot off first. A fun and kinda nefarious thing about this boss is that once you kill it, it'll charge straight at you. If it hits you and you die, the game will count that you died first. It's a bit mean, but it's surprising and challenging, and it is absolutely a mistake you'll only ever make once, which is why you don't see me doing it here. 4 stages down, so there's only 1 place left to go. According to General Pepper, we're coming up Andros's back door. Same sort of thing as last time at first. Huge onslaught of enemies making our planetary approach. Nothing particularly novel or standout about this, but also nothing dull. And the enemy variety is broad enough that it doesn't get repetitive like a level like the Asteroid belt might have done. This is StarFox at full speed, which is exactly what you want from Venom. Oh, and the boss is something completely new, the Metal Smasher. Presumably a replacement for the Rock Crusher, since we blew that up twice. The Metal Smasher has a thing where it tries to line you up in your metal ship to smash you. Clue is in the title. Interesting thing with this one is you finally need to learn liberal use and mastery of your retro thrusters to control your speed and space, shifting at the last second to get out of the way of being crushed into tiny little box-shaped pieces. Then it's back to aiming your bullets at the flashing red and yellow bits in the middle until they explode, obviously. What this boss demonstrates is that it isn't enough to just pilot yourself around the screen anymore. Now you need to control your speed in your particular space as well. It's expanding required complexity without adding new mechanics, instead finding something else to test you on. Smash up the Metal Smasher, thus unleashing Metallica and Megadeth on the Lilac system, and you're down into Venom proper. This time, you're flying down something that looks suspiciously like a trench in the side of a giant armored planet. Do you remember Star Wars? This is a great escalation of the requirements because now you're doing your usual fast-paced combat and technical prowess piloting, but in a much narrower space. There's a floor, a ceiling, and one big wall next to you the entire time, with a few dangerous supporting arches to fly under, hostile enemy fighters pulling up alongside you, and basically what might be the tightest and most refined section of pure StarFox combat in the entire game. Now, because you've been through a lot to get here, the boss is actually pretty simple and very easy. The Galactic Rider has an incredibly cool name for a boss fight, but all it does really is occasionally throw out wave race jet ski dudes, and slow down enough to try and ram into you like a Crash for Cash scammer. Get that out of the way and we're back on the hunt for Andros, some more impressive but sort of unnecessary barrel rolls, and our main villain is back to taunting us. He's clearly familiar with General Pepper, so we can assume at some point he probably got lowballed for a mission and felt offended enough to take over the galaxy. Get through a little bit more and slightly complex impressive flying and we're back at the Lawnmower Man segment. Same thing, except this time twice. No, really, that's it. Shoot him in the eyes, blow up his face, shoot out his brain, then watch his face come back together and do it all again. This might seem weak, but considering everything you have to do to get from the start of Venom to the final boss, it's more than enough. Given how much harder Course 2 can be than the first, there's an immense sense of closure to taking Andros down, even if it's only basically a bit more than last time. Now you know of course that we're not done. It's time for Course 3, beginning with... You've chosen Course 3. The General is happy with you, although he won't be if you fumble the hardest difficulty and wreck his R-Wings. Not too bothered if you die, just don't destroy his ships. Last time, very little had changed. Now though, the sky is red. In all of fiction, when has the sky being red ever been a good thing? Same enemy types, but Andros' forces have clearly been here for a while now because there's a lot more stuff in the way. This is a very clear escalation immediately on stage 1 just to let you know what Course 3 is going to be like. You can, and should, however, still get your Twin Blaster upgrade. There's a clever little part at the end where the transport construction robots are now carrying pieces of what used to be Corneria's boss previously, suggesting it's not going to be the same fight this time. I mean, this is also confirmed by Falco blasting up ahead, telling you he's going to take down the attack carrier because he's so cool. Spoilers, he won't though. So when you get to the attack carrier, it's all on you. It's not a complicated boss, but it is harder. There are turrets which can actually be replaced by the big dispensers above them, giving health back to the boss overall. So you need to factor in a small amount of planning and timing to how you attack. It's a clever little update to the opening challenge you'd have faced before on Corneria. Take that down and we're off to... You know things are getting serious now because General Pepper ends his briefing with some actual genuine encouragement. More of the same but harder, but that's okay. Course 3 is mostly about demonstrating your expertise, and having a contextual excuse to throw hundreds of tiny rocks at your face is a great way to justifiably increase the challenge level. Plus you can still get your Twin Blaster Type B, so it's fine. Oh, one new thing to pay attention to is these asteroids with what I can only describe as a troll face on them. Pay attention because we will come back to these later. It's boss time. This is the blade barrier and it's like being stuck in a giant space blender. General Pepper mentioned a tractor beam and this is what he meant. Falco is here to reinforce the point by telling you to rock and roll baby because he is actually so cool. If you do get caught in the tractor beam, you do a barrel roll and it's fine. Avoid rockets, shoot the glowy bits until they explode and try not to get hit by a broken ceiling fan on the way out. Then head to... Pepper's still talking like he's worried about you, and given what he's talking about, he might have a point. Fortuna is... well, first I need to shut up and let you hear this. Sorry, it's just the music is fantastic and it needs to be appreciated. Anyway, Fortuna is another very strong string on my bow when I say that people who think you shouldn't bother with this haven't played Course 3. This place is alive. It has giant sprouting flowers coming out of the ground, fish diving out of the sea, birds dive bombing you, giant fire-breathing angry water snakes that loosely resemble a Gyarados, and an open sense of scale to contrast with the closed-down industrial army levels you've seen a lot elsewhere. Fields, oceans, and a desert in quick succession, a moon hanging behind the cloudy sky. Fortuna stands as one of the game's highlight moments to really showcase its personal, individual beauty. It also has the most bonkers boss in the game, the Monarch Dodora. Some kind of double-headed chicken dragon? Looks insane, acts erratic, unlike anything else you've seen so far. 10 out of 10 spectacle fight, even if it's pretty easy. Pepper's stopped being worried again. Well, about you anyway. Sector Z is another escalation in familiarity. adding in a significantly large amount of almost non-Euclidean geometry for you to crash into. By now, you should hopefully be able to handle this stuff, because if you can't, this stage will make sure you die. A lot. White, transparent, wireframe blocks rotating at uncomfortable speed while you try and avoid incredibly painful giant laser balls coming right at your face. Like I said, this is Course 3. The ominous music kicks in again and we're back inside a giant battleship. Even more expert tight space piloting to test your limits and you'll reach that damn boss that I hate again. The atomic base is back, except somehow even more obnoxious, because now the nodes on the wall are on a timer, so you need to take them all out in a very short space of time before they repair themselves. Almost threatens to tip over from challenging into frustrating here, but we're on the hardest course in the game, so I will let it go. This is the perfect example of taking a rarely awkward mechanic and escalating the pressure. And now it's blown up, so it's fine. Is this a planet that I see before me? Yes, obviously. This particular planet is mentioned in the manual as having a long history of geological disasters, which have shrunk the core while the crust remains the same size and shape, making most of it hollow. I don't know if that's scientifically accurate or even technically possible, but I'm a talking anthropomorphic space fox, so I don't think that really matters. As you're watching this, please do note down that this is exclusively in the same course as Fortuna, which means you will only see both of these if you play on Course 3. I say that because Macbeth also looks fantastic. We're escalating even more now with natural narrow choke points from rocks, lots of those laser ball turrets everywhere, volcanoes spewing stuff out like volcanoes tend to do, and random bricks hanging in midair for some scientifically implausible reason. Macbeth is a perfect example of how you can take the same gameplay loop and through recontextualizing and representing it, make it still feel fresh and varied. Enjoy it because it's best described as majestic for something as old as the SNES, and pretty soon you'll hit the boss. This is the spinning core, which will decide whether or not you get to be or not to be dead. That was a Shakespeare reference. Write that down in your notebook. Like so much of Course 3, this boss is the best type of standard. Avoid the things trying to explode you and shoot at it until it dies. We're on a path of pure challenge escalation now, so that's contextually fine for what you've been through so far. Finish that off, and for the final time, we are approaching... Pepper's not worried about his R-Wing anymore, now he's talking fate, like there's some sort of historical context that's relevant to Fox specifically being the one to take down Andros. I'm sure that won't come up later. Venom. You know how this goes by now. Lock in your approach, take down a bunch of surface-to-air missiles, avoid even more things than usual, and basically just hold on for dear life. By this point you need to be the ace pilot that the manual told you Fox McCloud is, because the game is done holding back. Shoot as much as you can and make sure you've learned your lessons, because we're going hard on our way down to the final planet, so pay attention. The boss before your final descent is the Great Commander, a modular ship that will assemble itself in front of you like the Megazord. We're in the endgame now, so this early example of a scripted gameplay scene locks in the scope and gravity of how far you've come and what you've still got left to do. This is a unique boss fight because your ship is going to automatically pull a U-turn so that you can repeatedly rush head-on towards something that looks suspiciously like the Star Destroyer from Star Wars. I hadn't mentioned Star Wars in a while. Remember Star Wars? Anyway, this is impressively cinematic, not just for a 16-bit game, but even if you made a boss battle like this today, it'd be a suitable spectacle moment. Everything's pretty clear, keep doing your one-on-one rushes, aim for the flashing red and yellow weak points, try not to die. You are literally the underdog here, so much smaller than the gigantic galactic power machine that you're faced with. So as much as you're trying to not die, do take a moment to genuinely enjoy this because it's so simple but so effective. Down on Venom's surface for the final time, and the geometry's going nuts, there's lightning in the sky, and even the forces of physics are trying to end you. We are past the point of mechanic introduction or variety because when you're escalating to a final challenge like this, that's really all it's about anymore. Escalation. The level's full of things you've seen elsewhere by now, arranged in a way that's like a final exam in school, putting all you've learned to the test in an ominous, apocalyptically dangerous aesthetic, saving your squad mates, taking down turrets and knock-off AT-AT walkers, slipping through dynamically created gaps in hovering flat plane walls, all to make it to the return of the Great Commander, except now it's transformed into something resembling Rob from the NES, or I suppose for our younger viewers, Smash Brothers. A frequent bombardment of absolutely massive black bouncing balls, circular laser shots, distance-based spinning physical proximity hazards, just so much all at once. Hold on, do your best, get through it, and down they go and it's time for Andros again. And you know what? This time, I think Fox's unnecessary barrel rolls on the way in are actually entirely justified. You have come this far, so yeah, show off a bit. Andros wants to monologue again, except this time he's a little more humble and starts mentioning your father. You know, like in Star Wars. Which is a good point for us to take a quick break to talk about. Here in 2026, there's so many places that you might know Fox McCloud from. He was in Smash Brothers from the beginning. His series has had between 8 or 9 entries, depending on if you include the once-cancelled StarFox 2, released with the SNES Mini, and he even had a crossover in an ill-fated Ubisoft toy Portal game with Starlink. Oh, and he was also in a movie. You might have heard of it. But way back in the original game, Fox was set up from the very beginning as an aggressive fighter who often must rely on his skill to get his team out of trouble. It's immediately cool, and the manual has a page-long background to the Lilation conflict that you're in to set up a long history that he's clearly grown up and established his reputation in, to the point that General Pepper's call-out for him is put in larger font with 2 exclamation marks. So from the very beginning, Fox has been revered for his prowess. I bring this up because I personally believe that Course 3 is the canon storyline of the events of the first game. Because when you consider the StarFox team are described as a group of adventurers with outstanding combat skill, it already makes sense they'd be the ones called up for the most difficult of tasks. Andros just name-dropped Fox's dad, who you might know from his inclusion in Star Fox 64 as a sort of Obi-Wan ghost figure. But here we are all the way back in the original, and he's your link to the past. No, not that. Wrong Nintendo series. In just this one line, you're getting a sense of Fox's character. Clearly someone came before him, someone with a history with Andros, and the background of the ongoing Lilation conflict. So from this single reference in a 1993 on-rail shooter, you've got a sense of pressure and expectation sitting squarely on the shoulders of this young pilot, in the midst of you completing the most strenuous challenge you've had for the entire game. Speaking of which, avoid a bunch of defensive measures trying to squash you. That's a given. Time to be the ace pilot everyone expects you to be because of your father, and then make it to Andros. It's the same deal again. Well, for now. Shoot him in the eyes, avoid the floor tiles, so far so good. Then we get to what I genuinely personally believe is the coolest part of the game. Finally, this time, Andros transforms. We get this literally demonic interpretation of his big polygon face, and although the gameplay doesn't change, the theming absolutely does. This, by the way, is why I think Course 3 is canon. Dr. Andros, the once super genius turned galactic tyrant, is going all out evil to stop you. Lasers on top of the tiles as you fight for your life. Everything you've been through, and now you're facing a literal representation of a 3D devil. Get it done, Fox. Your crescendo moment is here. And that's it. 4 famous revered mercenaries in borrowed spaceships going up against an otherwise unstoppable galactic empire, mid-conflict in the thematic shadow of the man who came before you, in 3D on a 16-bit console in 1993. And if everything ended here, that'd be enough. But it doesn't, because we also have... StarFox has 2 secret spaces you can travel to that need a very specific set of actions to reach. The first starts in Course 1's Asteroid Belt stage, featuring 3 suspiciously specific rotating columns of rocks in quick succession. Take out the orange asteroid in the middle and fly through the exact space they occupied, and then pay attention. Down to the left, you'll see one of those troll-face asteroids from the Course 3 track. Aim for it and you'll get a portal. The music slows, we're back on the Course Select screen, and General Pepper's here for some more backstory. You can have both Andros lore and another reference to your father, who apparently has vanished sometime in the past. All of this in one sentence for some insanely efficient world building. The black hole itself is a sort of warp zone, and really just a chance for the development team to show off. Wibbly wobbly, trippy spatial effects and some Twilight Zone music while you fly past things that shouldn't make sense, but they do. Very short, very chaotic, and you're out into Course 2's Sector Y. It's just a neat little thing for some optional flavour, and probably not as impressive or obtuse as... Over on Course 3's Asteroid Belt, there's a huge asteroid that you can blow up. Do that, and a giant space bird will fly out of it. If you don't shoot that space bird, because why would you, you cruel-hearted monster, you can fly your ship directly into it. Do that, and you'll end up... Well, I don't actually know where you end up. General Pepper loses all contact with you. Your team has vanished. You're all alone, the music's gone wild, the background is bizarre, and nobody has a clue what's going on. There's paper planes, moons with faces on them, everything's wobbling. Just keep your head on straight and keep going, and you'll run into this thing. It's a slot machine in space, out of this dimension. What you need to do now is play it like a slot machine. It'll roll at random, shoot out coins when you land things, and occasionally try and kill you, because of course it does. Keep doing that for a while, hit 3 7s, and it'll explode. And now you're in the credits? Fly through those until they're all done, and you'll get to literally shoot the words "the end" until they all line up properly. This is where it ends. So like I said, your universe has lost contact with you, there's no pickups or warp rings, and the game ends here. So I suppose you might say that this is Fox only, no items, final destination. You ready for a hot take? This is canon. In the Mario Galaxy movie, Fox explains that his warp drive exploded, he got sucked into another dimension and arrived in the Mushroom Kingdom universe. This, I think, is the moment that happened. He's all alone, his own universe has lost all contact with him, and let's face it, this is bonkers, so why not? And that, from start to finish, is all of StarFox for the SNES. I hope you've been paying attention because now it's time for the... You've seen everything now. This game is much deeper than it first appears. On the surface, it is a technically impressive 3D on-rail shooter, but if you look closer, you'll find real gameplay depth, very strong pacing, and a sense of scale and ambition you probably weren't expecting from 1993. You've got physical, spatial complexity, carefully escalated levels, efficient world building, about 25 references to Star Wars, and I think a canonical link to a modern movie. You can see why I think Course 3 is the true path through the game, and from levels like Fortuna, Macbeth, and that final Andros transformation, I think it's pretty clear. If someone tells you there's no point going back to the original StarFox, they probably never made it past Course 1. If you want to understand StarFox as a series and Fox McCloud as a character, you have to start here. Or I suppose you could just watch this video and I'll explain it to you, which you just have because I'd just done it. And if you liked that video, then like the video that you liked since you liked it, and subscribe for more videos like the video you've liked because you've liked it, and I will see you the next time I'm thinking, hey, let's talk game design.